Hi everyone, and welcome to my presentation on my report titled After the Fire, Examining Impacts of Salvage Logging on British Columbia's Interior Landscapes and a Look to the Future. This presentation is for FRST 162 Fire Management with Lindsay. In this presentation, I will start with a short introduction defining salvage logging. I will move on to the measures put in place to manage retention and mitigate risk in the planning process of salvage logging. I'll go on to outline the environmental impacts of wildfire and salvage logging, and I will conclude with some strategies of what we can do right now and what lies ahead in the future. So to introduce this concept, what is salvage logging? Salvage logging is the practice of logging in forest areas that have been damaged by a natural disturbance event. In this case, we're talking about wildfire, in order to recover economic value that would otherwise be lost. So we're seeing a great uptick in this practice due to the vast amount of land, tenured land, that has been burned in recent years in British Columbia. So of course, there are guidelines in effect now to manage the development and planning of this land. I've included my own photo here. It is a landscape shot looking west in the ICH-BEC zone of British Columbia. This picture is taken in the Burton area, south of Nakusp, BC. You'll see in the lower part of the photo a large amount of the forest has been burned, and you will see the various cut blocks that are being harvested under salvage logging guidelines post-wildfire. This picture was taken in 2022. So with that talk of managing retention and mitigating risk, I will now tell you about the guidelines that have been put forth from within the forestry industry to deal with the planning of these blocks. It is quite a bit different because of the altered landscape. My primary source here was this paper written by Diane Nichols and Tom Ethier. It's titled Post-Natural Disturbance Forest Retention Guidance, and this was put out in 2018 after the devastating 2017 wildfires. So here you'll see the guidelines for retention as put out in this paper. They are listed in order of priority, and certainly there's an awareness of the socio-environmental impact present when you're interpreting this list. The points contemplated during the planning stages of salvage logging have a weighted priority on human and environmental safety. The ecosystem values are to be protected and retained, as well as the human establishment in the area. This means forest health is a high priority, considering soil quality, riparian management within that. The report goes on to outline expectations of collaborations between licensees and the communities, the First Nations, and local governments. So everybody kind of has a say in the development of salvage logging. The proposals are required to state their access management after the activity has been completed, so specifically for deactivating and rehabilitating roads, as well as decommission of the fire guards and the stream crossings. Maps need to be provided that delineate the severity of the burn and stratified accordingly within the watershed or the entire landscape unit, with all of these considerations in mind. Drinking water is quite important, and salvage logging should either cause no further harm or improve the quality. Subsequent fuel abatement processes are to be implemented, and if a protected area has burned, there is no salvage logging completed there, as it is not inside tenured land. The FERPA values are to be adhered to as they are in conventional logging planning. And all of these requirements are to be considered minimum requirements. So licensees need to meet or exceed these outlined points. Okay, so in this part of the presentation, I will talk about the environmental impact of salvage logging. So I'll just cover a few points here that are in my report. The first point is altered soils. Soils already can become hydrophobic after fire disturbances, so the addition of disturbance from salvage logging can contribute to damage suffered and increase the chances of landslides, washouts, and stunted or minimized growth of returning vegetation. Salvage logging can also increase the negative impact of wind on a burned forest. Removing the standing trees can increase the risk for wind throw on the timber boundaries of the cut areas, contributing to an increase in ground fuel load. On the other hand, this can help with increasing the amount of coarse woody debris on the ground, which is essential for a healthy forest, replacing what might have burned in some of these areas. Also, removing wood from burned areas can remove potential nesting areas for birds trying to establish after the wildfire. There is a study that was done in southern Appalachia, so it's not really geared towards the softwood landscapes of British Columbia, but certainly it gives you a little bit of food for thought. And the study was called Fire is for the Birds. Bird abundance doubled in severely burned areas of southern Appalachia. And it was done by Sarah Farmer, and she works with Southern Research Station. It was determined that vegetative growth in burned forests attracted bird species back to the area and was integral to their reproduction. And it goes on to explain that lower intensity fires are the most beneficial for the abundance of native species returning back to their natural habitats. And that kind of brings us to a question to ponder: how do we decrease the intensity of wildfires, not necessarily completely abolishing wildfire? I've included a photo I took here in the early spring of 2022, and it's just looking northeast into the boundary line of a burned block. And you can see that first you can see the snag, and I took this photo as part of a hazard assessment, but also you can see all of the woody debris that's still left on the ground. Some of it has been burned and some of it has freshly fallen down. And here is that question that I put forth a couple slides ago: how do we decrease the intensity of wildfires? And this is something just to keep in mind as we march towards the conclusion of this presentation. Here's another photo just for some visual relief. This is now looking southwest from the west side of Arrow Lake, and it shows a particularly smoky day in early September of 2022, where I was working in an already burned landscape and really noticing the effects of wildfire smoke here on that specific day. So here in the final part of the presentation is a look to the future. What can we do right now and what lies ahead? One thing that we can do is plant seedlings soon after salvage logging operations to give the damaged soil the structure it needs in the form of root establishment by these seedlings. And here is a photo of a hybrid spruce planted. This type of spruce is planted all over the interior of British Columbia, mostly in the later summer, and this photo was taken in early September when I went back just to monitor its health after the heat dome, and it seemed to be healthy to me. Another strategy here is fuel management. So you'll see these photos are just some shots I took from a fuel management project that I was on in the fall of 2022 and early winter. There's snow on the ground. So what we were doing here was cutting small trees with a DBH less than about 8 centimeters and bucking them up, piling them and burning them on site, as well as trimming lower ladder fuels and cleaning the forest floor a little bit, not exactly raking it, but certainly tidying things up a little bit. And one more strategy here to mitigate intensity of wildfires is, of course, planting fire-resistant species. You can see in this photo in the lower left quadrant, the wildfire essentially stopped at or near the cut block, which the cut block would be kind of that slightly lighter, more yellowy colored area, just past the burned area. And this block was planted with a higher ratio of western larch and yellow pine, which could possibly be the reason why the fire was unable to travel further. This photo was taken looking east in the ICH zone with Arrow Lake behind me. It was in the Van Houten area south of Octopus Creek, and this specific wildfire that we can see here burned during the 2021 heat dome. And the picture was taken in fall of 2022. I was up on this mountain checking bug traps for moth population monitoring project and checking survival on the summer trees that were planted in the area that year. So with all that, that's all I've got for you. Thank you for listening to this presentation, and I just wanted to leave credits here. I downloaded the template for this presentation from slidesgo.com, and it was a great resource. I really liked the layout of the presentation. Thanks for watching.